learning engagement. Now it's week 2, and it's really entering to the discussion of conflict management, conflict resolution. What about the first week discussion topics and learning engagement? Also, Luisa knows everything about it. What about you? It was easy, hard?
I gotta do a lot of research on that, so it's a little bit difficult for me.
What? A little bit complicated?
Yeah, because this is my first class actually, so I gotta get used to the routine of doing research and writing, everything else.
Luisa, how can you recommend anything to your classmate to make it easy to do the learning engagement? As a very professional student, you are our top student. What's your recommendation for your classmate? Is there anything you want to say to your classmate to do her learning engagement professionally and easily also?
First of all, it's always good, of course, to read the entire instruction of what is being asked of the learning engagement to make sure you answer it the way it's supposed to be. And then also make use of the articles that were given, but also, do your own research, like have more references. So you can have like your own opinion and not just based on one article. And then also it's always good to look into the book to see what the book says. I think these are the major points.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. As soon as possible, do your major post before Wednesday night. And after that, waiting for reply, your peers post, your classmate post. And also, I think sending the major post before Wednesday night is the basic part. I know also your classmate, online classmate is Wednesday, but no problem. It's not related to the video, related to the class. You should read the book before entering the class completely, your courses. And also the first week was very easy, not only very important material, but now from this week we have 7 weeks for 9 modules. Also modules are not so complicated, but very, very useful in your daily life and also your organizational, occupational life. So let's start with the PowerPoint. In my country, they said that there was a scientist, there was an ancient scientist that he had many books. And he carried his books with a donkey. And sometimes he went for praying in mosque and come back and see that donkey has gone with the books. And he said, what should I do now about my knowledge? And they said that it is your knowledge. It is the donkey's knowledge, and donkey has gone, has brought his knowledge. Sometimes I think that the donkey has changed to, for example, USP or PowerPoint for the faculties. And if the faculty or other scientists also lose their instruments, for example, USB or hard space, hard disk, and especially PowerPoints, what can they do for this? And also, it's a problem with the teaching. Also, I think it's not for me because I can do it without any extra tools like PowerPoints. But the ordinary students wants to have some PowerPoint for presenting systematically. Do you have passed or taken any courses, professional courses about how should you present yourself? For example, how is working professionally with PowerPoint? Have you taken such a course or not? Nothing. Welcome, Payal. Welcome. It's very important for you to know about the presentation professionally. And I will talk to the University Kalamyuu to have a good presentation session for the students to know about the principles of presentation in PowerPoint, especially in PowerPoint. And after that, the second one for presentation with lectures. What are the basic principles of how have a good presentation, for example, in Zoom, in Facebook. It's very important, very, very important, because a great and major part of your activities after ending, or maybe just now, I don't know, maybe just now, the major part of your activities as a manager, as a leader, is something about presentation. And presentation, honestly, is not only about a skill. It is something like, not like science, but it has very, very specific details. For have a professional, everybody look at your presentation, says, yes, Luisa is a professional presentator, or Payal is a professional presentator. He or she knows about the details of working with PowerPoint, working with videos. It is very important. Just now, in 20th century, especially after COVID-19, it is very important. So let's go to share the screen. Okay. As you remember, we called 9 models in this book. The first model, which is the basic concept for other models, is about stairway model, which include interests, rights, and power. Before entering the chapter, I have some question. What is your definition of interest? If you want to talk about interest in a position of negotiation, what is interest? For example, with you and your boyfriend, your partner, when you want to talk about your interest, what is interest here? Not about the interest of banks, not about the financial interest, interpersonal interest. What is the definition of interest? Yeah.
I would say your wants and needs.
What, Luisa?
I would say your personal wants and needs.
Your personal wants, needs, as your book also said that about your wants, needs, desires, and other things. Yes, it is interest, and your book says it's about the wants, needs. Something more than your book.
So interest is like something that make you comfortable with. Yeah. And like both sides agree with that. With whatever, and you guys both feel comfortable with that.
So, yeah, it should be interest. And Payal, what's your definition, operational definition of interest?
I would say interest is something like drives you for what you want to do. Like your interest will drive you to your goals. Like what specific, like, you know, as Luisa said, like what you want and what's our desire is. So something that drives you towards your goal. Like
also, your book says about your interests, about your fears. Even consider your fears and the categorization of your interest. And what about the rights? What is right? When you want to talk about the rights, what's right in negotiation? For example, I and Luisa want to talk about something based on our rights, not our interests. What is the difference between this or that?
So the interest.
Any personal definition, any personal, be courageous, no problem.
right,
Personal.
it's gonna.
I need your, yeah.
I guess right is something that you know that you deserve it and that you want it. Like it's like, I know I deserved it. That like this is my right. Something that you deserve. Like you know that it's mine. Like you know, you have on it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but that's what I'm trying to say.
And what about you, Luisa? How can you?
If we see it in a negotiation, it's like it's your right or of your freedom of speech. So like, you know, before starting a negotiation, before concluding on both parties, like we all have to put our, you know, say in it, and
Yeah.
making sure that my partner and also they're like, you know, they agreed to it and all.
Yes, yes, yes. Agreement is a major part of definition for rights. Also, not only about the uh, personal rights. When we are talking about rights, we are talking about convention. We will talk about it. We are talking about legislation. What about power? What's the meaning of power? The basic question. What's power?
Will be the potential, like, you know, that you have a power in something.
Uh-huh.
So it's like you have the higher point. I don't know.
Uh-huh. What's the difference between power and force? Is there any difference between
Force
power
is
and
like if
force?
you impose something, like, you know,
Uh-huh.
you kind of like you use it in a negative way, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
like when you
Force
force
is
someone to do
negative or
something in
power?
the way.
Power
Force,
is negative or force? Okay. And what about difference between
force.
power and
Like
strength?
everything is good in a limit. Like, you know, if someone is forced, it's like if someone misused their power to force someone to do something. I don't know. I guess it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. So you consider the word forceful so negative. When I am forceful, I am not a positive person. I am forcing other people, make them to do something by
Yeah,
my
if
force.
someone is doing something that is not something they would like to do, but if they're doing it like uh with no option, it's like they
Forceful.
have to do it. You
Yeah.
know, you don't have a say
Luisa,
in that.
Phoebe, what
Something like
about
that.
you? What's your opinion about the difference between power and force?
For me, force is not always negative
Uh-huh.
because in some cases, just like the police use their force, use their power to stop something illegally. So it's not a negative. Sometimes, like, I mean, it depends on the case. In this case, it may be negative, and that in the other case, maybe positive. It doesn't always mean that negative.
So you consider it sometimes negative, sometimes positive.
Yeah, like if you your power as a force to make somebody do some bad thing or illegal thing, then it's negative. But if it to stop some negative thing, then it's positive.
If I consider power as a body, is it correct to consider force as the hands of the body? Can you consider force as a tools for power? If I am powerful, my tools for showing my power is force. Are you agree with this definition, with this metaphor or not? Consider my body for power as a body and consider force as the hands of the body. Luisa.
Yeah, I could see that as a definition because with force, I would say it can be, for example, like physical force, or so it's like you do it, or but power is like you already
Cognition, like emotion, like energy, inner energy,
you have the authority to
authority, yeah, authority.
like over other people, and that's your power. And
So
force, I think
can
force,
we consider force as an objective and power as a subjective? The behavioral part of power can be called force. The action part of power can be called force or not.
I think so. I think force can be like a part of the power definition.
Yeah.
Like to
So you use the
have
word,
power, you could enforce the force.
yeah. For example, in our university, California, Miramar University, we have 4 centers of excellence. One of them is called Women Empowerment Center of Excellence. It is not women enforcement. It is not women enforce. It is women empowerment. It seems that power indicates to the inner part of your strength. You have a strength? Yeah. What's the inner part? It is called power. What is the outer part? It is called force. But in negotiation, in conflict resolution, we encounter with different definitions. And we should have an agreement about the definitions. It is about the author of the book. Basically, whatever you want to discuss about, you should have 2 definitions. What are the definitions you should have? When you want to discuss something, for example, your doctorate thesis or your master degree dissertation, at first, the basic part is to define 2 parts, to supply 2 types of definition. What are the definitions you should define, you should prepare? Do you know? First, conceptual definition. Second, operational definition. For everything in your life you want to work with, you should have 2 types of definitions: conceptual definitions and operational definitions. Subjective definition and objective definition. Implicit definition and explicit definition. Now we consider the different aspects of, for example, rights, power, interest in this book, in this conceptual framework, with the definitions, conceptual definitions and operational definitions provided by the author. It's very important. There is nothing as an absolute fact. It is by agreement. For example, we have an academic program. It is business administration. Something different, a little operational different from MBA. And also we have added something to MBA, which is called EMBA. What is EMBA? Executive Master of Business Administration. But you know that MBA is very executive. But we have an additional course, so-called EMBA, all around the world. Not only, I don't know, we have in our university or no. But there is another branch, another field, so-called EMBA, for example. And if you want to know the differences between, for example, MBA, EMBA, and DBA, or what is the difference between doctorate programs and PhD programs, which are different, for example, you should know about the conceptual definition and operational definition. So now we want to go to know the 9 modules about conflict resolution, conflict management, dispute management. The first model, which is called a stairway model, is the basic model for all other 8 models. It underpins all the concepts about the conflict resolution, with a concentration not about the definition of conflict or sorting or categorizing the conflict. It talks about the procedures or levels or steps you should take to resolve a conflict. Okay, let's go to this part. It's the foundational framework, as we talk, and underpin the entire field of conflict resolution and negotiation, the stairway model. Underpin is a keyword. Program on negotiation at Harvard University. As we talked about it last session, previous session, negotiation is such as an important, vital, crucial matter in all aspects of our life, especially in conflicts. For example, in legal conflict, in political conflict, in social conflict. When you encounter with a phenomenon so-called Black Lives Matter, or LGBTQ protest for giving and having the civilized rights, not citizen rights, civilized rights, modern rights, you are encountering a conflict. And what is the best procedure for conflict resolution? Negotiation. So Harvard University School of Law, in contribution with other schools, especially Business School of Harvard and the School of Law, has a great long-term program on negotiation, which is called Program on Negotiation, PON, Harvard Law University, Harvard Law School. Also, it is not about your book, but I have added something to your course from that part. Okay, the first major model is taken from two primary books, which I added the cover of the books to your Moodle page for the first week, which are Getting to Yes and Getting Past No. The major part is from these books, two books by Fisher and Urey, by the title of Getting to Yes and Getting Past No. Major question: is telling no to other people or saying yes to other people, is it a life skill? How do you think, as a future mother, as a future teacher, why not? Maybe as a future social leader, why not? Do you think that you should have and you should know how to use the skill of saying no to other people or not? It's not important. To be kind, to be wise is enough. As a manager, how do you think about the significance or importance of knowing, of training and using saying no skill in your daily, familiar, social, interpersonal, and more important than everything, in your occupational life? What is the state of knowing and using saying no technique in your life? Do you have any bad situation? Do you have any bad experience from your last life, from your previous years of life, that you have damaged something which was so important for you only because you didn't know how to say no to other people, or how to use techniques to reach a yes position as a win-win game, not as a game win-lose game or lose-win game? Say me, not about your personal life. If you want, you can talk about it, but say me about the importance of knowing and using say no to other people technique in our professional life. Luisa, Phoebe, and Payal.
Of course, that's very important. Otherwise, you wouldn't get anything done. If you always say yes, you don't get to do the things you have to do, because you always do things for other people.
Yeah.
So it's important to differentiate between is it like worth it to say yes, and or do I have to say no? And then of course sometimes you say yes because you want to be like nice and kind, and of course it's sometimes it's good, but sometimes you have to be like get over it and be more professional, I think, and yeah, just accept also the reaction of the other person. So it's important.
Phoebe,
Yes, I totally agree with those.
can I pronounce your name correct? It is Phoebe?
Yes, just Phoebe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say.
So I totally agree with Lucia, because she already tell anything in my head. But then let me give an example. So on my OPT, I was working as the assistant manager at a technically for different restaurant in for different field, but one of those is the fast food one. And then I always say yes with the cashier who like there's like three cashiers who are like young, like in their 20s. And everything they ask me, I just say yes, like go out, take day off, or exchange the shift together. But then the problem occurred when the other employees tell the boss that, oh, I agree with anything that they said and I allow them to do anything that they want. So at the end, I got like it's not a yell, but it's kind of bad review on my report, weekly report on that part. So that's from that incident, I learned to say no when I have to, and based on the rules of the store, based on I mean, the set of rules that the owner already put out. So I learned a lot from that incident. It's just a small one.
What is our stop points to say no? Why we don't say no easily?
Because I don't want to make them feel bad or hurt anybody. Because for me, so if you work on, for example, Wednesday and Thursday, and the other one Monday and Tuesday, you can switch around. It doesn't hurt anybody as long as there's a coworker in the store to take that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's normal. But then for other employees, they see that that's not proper how you work. Like your shift, you have to do it. You don't just switch and then you switch it.
Yeah. We have three phrases here: approval seeking, attention seeking, pleasing seeking.
Okay.
Pleasing seeking is so dangerous. You want everybody would be pleased of you. Say, you are a good girl, you are a good woman. Everybody. It is pleasing seeking. It's so dangerous. For your mental health, it's so dangerous. Before that, approval seeking. Everybody would be happy from approval. Why not? What approval seeking is mean, I need your approval. I do something only with the intention to gaining your approval. If I am doing my job so good and university say me perfect, thank you, why not? But if I do something only with the intention, final goal, final intention to gaining approval, I mean, I don't have any approval, I am not so good, I don't feel so good about myself. It is approval seeking. So pleasing seeking, approval seeking, and attention seeking. All of them are very dangerous, not only for your mental health, because these behaviors, these mental models make you something like a doll. You only play the games that other people want from you, or you think that they will want from you. Sometimes they said, sorry, your mother said, sorry, my daughter, I never remember to have something, to ask something like it from you. And you said, I thought that if I did something like it, you will confirm me, you will approve me, you will pay me attention, you will mean some pleasing as a feeling of pleasing to be okay. As a manager, wow, it harm yourself and your organization seriously. If a manager is an approval seeker, if a manager is a pleasing seeker, he or she will be fired as soon as possible. Why not? Why? Because these are the danger risk points of decision making. You cannot make a correct decision if you're approval seeker. Think about it. Why many damaged relationship we long for a long time will last for a long time. Why? You and your partner, you and your mother, you and your employee, you and your coworker are not so happy, but you will last your relationship so long. Why? Because of approval seeking, because of deficiency in the skill of saying no to other people. So I think as an adult, as a manager, as a leader, it is very important to know and to be skillful in the skill of saying no to other people for the basic parts. I don't know how is your mental status in this skill, but if you think that traditionally, basically, you are approval seeker, you are pleasing seeking, you are attention seeker, okay, you should work on it as soon as possible before entering a bad situation. There's some wrong or something that your decisions are not wrong, they are weak. Wrong decision is something different from weak decision. Sometimes you have right decisions, but weak decision. Weakness or power of decisions is related to the performance of the decisions, not about the essence of the decision. Sometimes the essence of the decision is correct, okay, but in performance you are weak because of some great problems. Most of them is approval seeking. Okay. Process and approaches that people use to resolve disputes are interest-based processes, rights-based processes, and power-based processes. Totally. For other 8 models, we can find these concepts. And sometimes I want to resolve my conflict with you based on mutual interest, win-win game. Sometimes I want to be the winner. It's not important for me that you are winner or you loser. And ordinary, when I am winner, you are loser. It is win-lose game. And sometimes I say, if I should be winner, I should be loser, you should be loser too. It is lose-lose game. It is about the power base, not categorizing or assessing the conflict themselves. Pay attention that in this model, in the Staver model, we are not talking about the categorizing or collecting, gathering information, collecting information about the essence and nature of the conflict and categorizing the conflict. We are talking about the processes in the path to success and to successfully resolve our conflicts. You can see here, we will talk about the costs and the importance and the control. It's like a stairway. The first step is interest, very good step. A leader higher, the next step is a step of rights. And the final and the highest step is the step of power. Okay. In interest-based process, in both in all of them, we should talk about the target of the processes, nature of the processes, outcome of the processes, an example of that model of processing. In interest-based processes, the target is to run reconciliation, to have a good feeling to each other, win-win game, as you can see in the outcome. Meeting the interests of the parties, both mutual interests or private or personal interests. If we are not talking about the person, we are talking about the organizations. Because of that, it is very good processing for talking, for resolving our conflicts. Your winning is my win, and my winning is your win. All for one, one for all. It is peaceful, very peaceful. Not peaceful as a meaning of to be calm or serenity. No, sometimes the negotiation is very hard. But finally, the intention underpin the negotiation process, the conflict management, is based on mutual interest, meet the mutual interest, not my interest, not your interest only. Interest, as Luisa said, interest including wants, needs, hopes, and fears. The first three are positive, and also fears are not negative, but not, it's a negative emotion, not a negative being. Sometimes we have some negative emotions, but they are efficient for our survival. For example, fear is a negative emotion, but very good emotion for your survival. What is the reaction to your fear? What are the major reactions to our fear? Do you know? At first is when you are in a fearful position, what's your reaction? What's your response? At first is
So if I was in a fear situation,
if you are experiencing fear, what is your first reaction?
I will just keep silence and watch the situation first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other reactions? I
Mm,
escape.
escape.
Escape, yeah. The first one is flighting, going out of the situation. The second one is fighting. The third one is, as you said, freezing, pausing. So we have three major basic reaction to fearful in a fearful situation: fight, flight, freeze. These are the scientific approved reaction to fear. But it's good. If you are under the hazard of losing your life in a deathful situation, you should have a good escaping. You should have a good flight. Or no, you can fight with the situation. And sometimes, as you said, we stop, we pause, we freeze everything and start looking at the situation to have a good analysis about the next step, what we should do. Also, it is the third. It is related to the threat, to the possible danger that the position have for your survival. So the nature of this type of processes, interest-based process, is based on consensual. We want to have the win-win game, win-win outcome, as you see in the outcomes. What are the examples of interest-based processes? For example, any ordinary negotiation, or mediation, or joint problem solving, or mutual gain bargaining, or brainstorming. Especially in brainstorming sessions in think tanks, we have some types of these processes. In right-based questions, it is when you cannot achieve a good position, a good result in your discussion for resolving the situation. It is rights-based processes. Superiority of one's party's rights over the rights of other parties. It is about the superiority, about the dominancy. One party over another party. So it is not about that. It is the matter of win-win game. One of them should be loser, at least. At least one of the parties should be loser. It is something like fighting. But what is the tools of fighting? It is not the power. It is about your legal rights, your conventional rights, your community rights, your past life history, your habits, about your community. For example, you know, in many countries, also in America, while talking about other countries, we can talk about other states except of California. For example, you know, homosexuality is a problem in many states of America, many of them. Only I think 7 or 10 states has accepted, for example, homosexual or same-sex marriage. Other states doesn't accept. Why? Because of legislation. They said there is no legal approval for this type of marriage. Why? Because of the convention because of the social interacts, because of the hidden rules, not explicit rules, implicit rules of the society. Because the society is Catholic based, Muslim based, Jewish based, religion based, and cannot accept, for example, same sex. Or about the business. You know, different states of America have different laws for state tax. A major question is that when Tesla go out of the California and go to Texas, what is the next step? After 10 years, Austin will become Silicon Valley. Austin will become the major part of, for example, automobile and car makers companies. Why? Because the state of Texas has the lower rate of the state. I think it is zero rate. I'm not certain about it, with no estate tax. Is it a matter of negotiation? No, it's a matter of rights, but not only about power. For example, what is happening in conflict, children and spouses can experience during a divorce process. At first, maybe very, very friendly, maybe friendly. Talk together, one of them say, or all of them say, that we are not happy, we are friends, we have, for example, mutual rights like our children, and no problem. It is the only our relationship as partner, as wife and husband will be cut, but we will be friend and mutual respect and mutual interest. The best scenario is that. And many times, one of them say, no, 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 I'm not your friend. I want my rights. So go to the court. So the nature of the conflict resolution has changed from win-win game to win-lose game. From consensual part to many other, they are not enemies. They are not enemies, but they are concentrate on minimizing the right of other people. For example, right of your wife, right of your husband. And sometimes, especially if there is no legal support in many countries, ordinary for women, there is no legal support in, for example, duration of divorce course, divorce process. Because it is not based on the rights or interests, based on our power. I'm a man, and all power is for me, and everything I want to do, I can do it. For example, in developing countries, you can find it in some parts of Asia or other parts of African countries, or sometimes of Southern America. We can find it that the power is for one gender, totally, and usually is for males. Sometimes it's for females. But it is not the matter of negotiation. It is not the matter of rights or interest. It is a matter of power that we will talk in the next part. So in interest in rights-based processes, superiority allows statutes, conventions, past practices, policies, contracts, and etc. These are the source of rights. Why you have rights? Because of the law, because of the statutes, because of the conventions, because of my past practices, my reputation, because of the policies or policy makings, and because of my contracts. We are talking about organization, not always about the family and societies and communities. We are talking about the organization. Contracts are very important. Because of that, every company has a good lawyer only for supervising the contracts, because after ending the contract, after closing a contract, you should work based on the contract. You should do everything based on your contract. Contract can create or damage your rights. And nature of them is not consensual. It is adversarial, based on hostility, based on damage, focus on promoting one's own rights while minimizing and delegitimizing the other parties right. I'm okay. You are not okay. I want to create such a position in a process of negotiation, processing, or in a process of conflict management. So naturally, outcome is win-lose. Sometimes it is lose-lose game, but ordinarily it is win-lose game. One of the parties are winner, and the next one is loser. And finally, what are the examples of these type of negotiation and conflict management processes? It is litigation, arbitration, adjudication, tribunal decision, neutral evaluation, and sometimes of negotiation and formal investigation. You see that we are talking about court. We are talking about general concepts out of our interest, only for giving our rights or taking other people their rights. We are talking about legislation. We are talking about litigation, arbitration, adjudication, tribunal decisions. These are not about your interest. It's about court, about mediation, about judgment, especially based on legal, based on law. The third types in this model is power-based processes. We talk about it, where all the resources they have at their disposal against the other party in attempt to win. What was the keyword of interest? Fear, wants, needs, hope. What was the keyword of rights? Legislation, legal, and conventions. What is the keyword of power? Resources. When you want to enter a game based on your power, you should know about your resources. So nature is highly adversarial. It's like a fight. It's like a fight. Something more adversarial than, for example, right space. Something different. Also, very, very near to right space. We will talk about it. Very, very near to right space. And something different, completely different from interest space. These are very near together, but it is highly adversarial. As you remember, rights-based processes were adversarial, but power-based processes are highly adversarial, sometimes applied in spite of the rights of the parties. And outcome is normally lose-lose, only destroy anything. Sometimes it is win-lose. In opposition of right space. Right space is normally win-lose, sometimes it's lose-lose. It is normally lose-lose, sometimes it is win-lose. Example, like threats, intimidation, physical force or violence, strikes or lockouts, unilateral decision making. It's very important. Unilateral, or you go to make a decision only by one side of the parties. And sometimes of negotiation, self-help, and voting. You see here that these last two parts, rights and power-based processes, separate and distinguishable types of processes. We can distinguish together, operate together in conflict. And the right-based framework that gives power to one party in a given situation. In many cases, you see that I have the power to resolve the negotiation, to resolve the conflict, to manage the dispute, only because I have the rights. So rights give me the power to resolve the conflict based on my power, not based on my rights, not based on my interest, not based on being a fair play. It is not a fair play. It's based on the power. If we can consider me as a winner, perfect. It is win-lose game, something near to rights-based processes. No, if I want to destroy myself and also yourself, it is about the threat, it is about the unilateral decision making and something like them. It would be a lose-lose game. It is something more than highly adversarial, and it is something like power-based processes. And rights and power-based processes are adversarial in nature, but interest-based are collaborative in nature. We talk about it. It is consensual. It is collaborating. So the number two and number three of the processes are based on the to be something like hostility or adversarial in nature. It is sometimes in the best scenario you can call it competitive. In the best scenario, also I cannot consider it as a competitive, but yes, rights based sometimes in a very shallow rights give you some types of competition, but basically it's adversarial. But interest based is something different. In nature, it is we want to have some collaboration. I want to talk about the different aspects and extra information I want to talk about it with you. That when we have some conflict together, sometimes I said everything for you and let me go out of the conflict. I accept my losing role in the conflict, especially when we are some shareholders. We want to have some uh, share to holding together, giving and taking together. And I say, oh, everything is for you. I accept my losing. It says accommodation. It says accommodation. Sometimes I said, yes, I want to be winner, and also you can be winner. It is collaboration. Sometimes I said both of us are loser. So let's create a very fair position for losing. This is compromise. Sometimes I said, no, I want to only be the winner. In compromise, we have a fair losing. In collaboration, we have a fair winning. I win, you win in a fair level. It is collaboration. I lose, you lose in a fair and equal level. It is compromise. Sometimes I say, I want to be the only winner. It is competition. I want to be only winner. It is competition. These are the different aspects of coming to a position that we have some mutual interest. And after that, we want to talk and resolve our conflict based on our interest, based on our rights, or based on our power. You see here, we will talk about the cost and control. And you see that every time we go up in the stairs from interest to rights, cost goes up. An important consideration, the most obvious cost, time and money. More time and more money you should pay and you should save and you should put for going from interest and rights. The lowest cost, the lowest time, the lowest money for resolving a conflict is based on mutual interest. Again, when you go to so resolve your conflict based on your rights, more money, at least more money and time. And when you want to go to the power and involving a fight, higher money and higher time. So as a manager, at first, you should think about the costs and profits. After that, you can say, what are the costs, what are the profit, and we are in the benefit or we are in the lose situation. And also control goes down. The best control is in the situation that I want our mutual interest, meet our mutual interest, the first stage, first processes. If I want to talk and resolve the conflict based on the rights, the control for both of us, both parties will reduce. And in power, there is no control. If there is control, only for one party. So two major important things that you should consider in changing the process from interest-based processes to rights-based processes to power-based processes. The major things you should consider are about cost and control. Higher cost and lower control. Additional range of costs. We talk about the money and time, loss of productivity when you are going to the rights or power situation for resolving your conflict, loss of focus, draining of emotional energy, except especially in out of your organization, in interpersonal relationship, when you go to rights or power for resolving your conflict, interpersonal conflict with your love partner, with your parents, with your friends, it's like draining your emotional energy. You don't have any good feeling about yourself or your relationship. Stress, other costs that you should pay. Strain or terminate a relationship. You can finally say goodbye to your relationship. Again, loss of productivity, lower morale. You think that you are so fearful and don't have any energy, don't have any courage to do anything, lower morale, and damaged reputation, especially as a businessman, as a businesswoman, as a manager, as an organizational leader, maybe sometimes as a social or community leader. Reputation is very important for you. It is your social credit. It's your prestige, your social credit. So damage reputation because of the changing the procedure you want to resolve your conflict from based on the interest, going to the rights, and after that going to power. You will damage, or your society, your people around yourself will damage your reputation. The rights and power-based process are more closely in these costs. And why control down? In interest processes, the parties themselves control the nature, direction, and outcome of the negotiations. Why? There is no mediation, no need to mediating, only negotiation. We want to talk about our interests and have a good mutual situation for giving and taking, our interest for meeting our mutual interest. Why not? So the parties themselves control the nature, direction, and outcome of the negotiations. And in right-based processes, the parties have turned the final decision over to a third party. You cannot yourself talk with each other for resolving your conflict. You have gone to a third party as a mediator to resolve your conflicts. And many times the final decision handed down does not meet all of the interests of their party, including the winning party. Sometimes the winning party, the winning side comes and say, yes, I have won the game, but I have lost many things in the process of winning, even including the winning party, even the person or the organization or the sides that apparently has won the party. And power-based process, the only control to left party is control over how much of the power they choose to use against other party. It's fight, destroy everything. Power-based process, using the power-based process for resolving your conflict, normally destroy anything and everything. Why? Because there is no control on the outcomes. The only control you have is the control of your resources against other party. A tit for tat exchange. It is the basic example for this part. And what are the strengths of interest-based parties and processes? It is collaborative. We talk about it. Creative and unique solutions, very, very unique, specific solutions. Each item, unique solution, specific solution. Problem solving approach, not emotion solving approach. And durable agreements, and builds and strengthen relationships. Everybody is happy after ending the conflict. and maximizing outcome for all parties. So basically, it is highly recommended to use the interest-based process for every type of conflict you are encountering for resolving. The interest base is time consuming. Sometimes it's very long term with a very high rate of burnout, high degree of burnout for all the parties. Doesn't always achieve a resolution. More creative, but less consistent solutions. Yes, it is creative, but the consistency is not like, for example, the interest-based solutions, and can be incorrectly seen as a soft or touchy-feely approach sometimes. Also, incorrectly, it is not true. It is not soft or touchy-feely approach. It is very hard approach because of the time consuming, because of the long-term consumption of time, and because of the high cost and adversary. It is not about the have some conciliation together. So fair game for win-win game. Okay. Let me check it again. Okay. And what are the weaknesses? No, it is about power-based, not strengths. Power-based processes, strengths are fair, consistent, standard applied to everyone, faster outcomes in that solution to most situations spell out in advance, and right-based positions have some external legitimacy, can be seen as objective in the right-based processes. Why? Because legislation, legal, and laws say you that what are your rights? And the final part is about the processes. The weaknesses of right-based processes are win-lose outcome at first. Second, more formal, costlier process, a little more costly. Why? Because sometimes you should pay some, what were the basic costs? Time and energy, time and money. The basic cost, absolute cost you should pay for conflict resolution is time and money. And we say that every step we go up from the interest to the rights, from the rights to power, at least it needs more money and more time. And hard to get agreement on interpreting everyone's right, leading to additional conflicts. It are the weaknesses of right-based processes. And parties less satisfied when losing and can harm relationship because it is about right. It is a little weaker than fight. It is not about friendship, about conciliation. It is something like fight. So obviously it will damage your relationship, your partnership, your friendship. And slower outcomes because formal processes take longer than informal ones. For example, it's a court for 2 years, 3 years. These are the weaknesses of right-based processes. Okay. And finally, we want to talk about the rights, strengths, and weaknesses of power-based processes. Only two strengths we can consider for power-based processes. One, fast, no consultation is required because it is a power. What type of negotiation we want to do? Nothing. If you are powerful or not, if you are forceful or you're not, if you are power holder or not, there's no need to time, no negotiation. And one party can simply take everything they want, if indeed they can. Is it a strength? Yes, it is a strength, but it's not a fair strength. It is not a consistent strength. It is not a balanced strength. Only a strength for the party who has the power, for the power holder. But what are the weaknesses of power-based process? At first, can be seen and an oppressive stirs up resistance. There's nothing after that. Win-lose at best, often lose-lose. Honestly, many times power-based processes are lose-lose game. Apparently, you can see in appearance that yes, one party is winner, but the high cost of winning means that yes, winning in a high cost means losing. Only the position of winning, yes, it is the position of winning, but many time, many money, many relationship, many friendship, many of contracts have damage because of your winning as an organization, as a person, as a community, as a society, as a team, as a uh, department. So in the appearance, we say, yes, I am a winner, but basically you are not winner. Significant damage to relationship, completely damage to relationship. No durability to solutions. Other party looking for failure or I told you so. Once power is the primary process used, more and more power is needed over time to get the same results. Okay. In the first step, with this level of power, I am winner, but I want to be consistent at my situation as a winner. I should use and receive more and more and more power only for maintain the same situation in the first step. It is something like substance addiction. In substance addiction, there is a phenomenon so-called, it is tolerance. Tolerance is meant when you use some substance like opium, like cocaine, even like marijuana, or even like very simple thing like cigarettes. When you use it for the first time, second time, after that you see there is no euphoria, there is no pleasure like the first experience. And you should again add it, add it to the upper levels of usage only for gaining the first impact, the first euphoria, the first pleasure. It is called tolerance. Also, tolerance is body physiological, like for opium or cocaine, or psychological like marijuana. You see this phenomenon as tolerance to substance. It is something like that. If your winning position, if your winning process is something for based on power, perfect, congratulations, you are a winner. But for maintaining your winning at the same level, you should use more power, more power, more power, and you will be exhausted after these gaining and using more power and power. Never feels fair to losing power or often sometimes to party. Okay. Strategic direction. In every chapter, we have a very good parts, very practical parts, so-called strategical direction for that model. By understanding the outcomes and consequences of the different types of processes, this model directs practitioners to guide the parties toward the process that will accomplish what they want at the lowest cost for those involved. You see that we can have some direction and strategic direction for the future planning for action. Our default is using interest-based processes first. At first, lower cost, higher control, so friendly, consensual, persistent, and a durability, high durability for interest-based processes. It is our default. If these processes, interest-based process, fail, go to rights, go to rights-based process. And following that, if the rights-based and also interest-based doesn't answer, fail, go to the power-based interest. And loop back to interest. It is very simple, but in practice, it is very important to know it about it. default to using what is the first part. There are very few situations where rights or power should be used as a first choice. Interest rates such as problem solving, negotiation, mediation are inexpensive enough and successful enough that there should be a presumption of using these interest-based processes first. At first, start with negotiation. At first, start with problem-solving process. Highly recommended. I don't know that you know anything professionally about the problem solving process. If you don't know, go to internet and read a very powerful, good, professional book about the process of problem solving. It's a science, very, very specific science of management and psychology. It's called problem solving process. Step 1, step 2, 5 steps. Some books says 4 steps, some books and some authors says 5 steps. How we should solve our problems step by step. For example, defining the problem, defining the obstacles and other things that you can find in the books or in the internet. It is good for entering to resolve a conflict with negotiation, with problem solving, even with the third party, mediation. Why not? Your father, your mother, your partner, your lawyer, not lawyer as your power-based or right-based counselor, as your mediator, your mediation. Because the cost of money, the cost of time is very lower and very persistent outcomes. The default approach should be interest-based power in moving to right-based only if the interest-based fails, and moving to power-based only if the right-based approach fails. Also, it is very culture-based. In some fight-oriented cultures, which I don't want to talk about the titles of these cultures, in some fight-oriented cultures, totally they want to solve everything with fighting. The first choice, first option is power-based processes. You can solve it by negotiation. There is no need to fight or flight or escaping high-cost processes. We can negotiate about it. Why not? But at first, because basically culture-based, they know that the fighting is the most important part and the most effective part. Use the lowest cost right through power process. Within each step, there are processes that will cost more or cost less. For example, arbitration typically costs less in time and money than litigation, even though both are right-based process. Yes, you are entering to the right-based process. Again, in right-based, choose the options with the lower cost of money and time. You don't want to have negotiation. You cannot negotiate. You cannot use your mediation. You cannot use your problem-solving skills. Okay, you are going to, for example, right-based processes. In that steps, in that level, again, you should consider the lowest cost procedures. For example, as said, even better, neutral evaluation costs less in time and money than aid. In political processes, which are mostly power-based, not rights-based, allowing people to vote for their political leaders every 5 years costs less than having a civil war every 5 years. We are talking about the civil war. If you consider that you want this government or not every 5 years, is better than to enter a civil war. Both of them based on rights, yes. But how you can deal with the rights is very important than the nature of the rights. And look up in this if you need to use right and power-based process, or if the situation has escalated to other parties using rights or power-based process. Look for opportunity to look back down to the stairway to interest wherever possible. For example, after a struggle between you and other opponents, other competitive companies, you see that yes, it is time to go to the negotiation. We have a balance of power. Okay, go to the interest stage. Every time you can stop power base, go to the interest base, in the rights base, stop it. Every time you can stop your rights based processes and go to the interest based processes, stop it. This is a key principle. And it says that if you need to file a lawsuit to protect your rights, do so. Then keep looking for opportunities to negotiate a resolution. I have my lawsuit, okay, but I am ready to negotiate with you. Again, okay. If we have a common and mutual and share and fair interest and fair result as win-win game, I will cancel my lawsuit. Why not? So you should put yourself in the position of power if you are going out of the interest-based processes. You should put yourself in a position of power, and after that, again, have a proposal. Do you want, as our opponent, to enter the interest-based processes, for example, for mediation, using third party and the negotiation? Perfect. It is the first part. Have a 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes rest, and after 10 minutes be here for the next chapter and go to the weekly quiz. Okay, welcome again. And in the next few minutes, we will talk about the model number 2, triangle of satisfaction. We have different triangle models in psychology and management. For example, love triangle or love triology. Do you know anything about the love triangle? It's one of the most basic scientific models about love. It says that by Sternberg. Sternberg is one of the greatest psychologists. It says that love has three dimensions, three components: passion, commitment, and intimacy. It is love triangle or love triology. So we have here triangle of satisfaction. And I am writing a book about the triangle of failure. It is called failure trial, failure triad. Failure triad says about based on my research, it shows that failure has three components: procrastination, fear, and greed. Based on that, I am writing a book about this model of failure based on fear, procrastination, and greed. Okay, let's go to see what's triangle of satisfaction. The triangle is actually a related part of the circle of conflict model that you will see in the chapter 6. And it's taken from same source, Moore's book, The Mediation Process. I have put, I think, the cover of this book in your Moodle page. It's a good book. If you want to know something more about the mediation, it's a very, very practical book. It's a mediation process. Uh, it is, in essence, a deeper layer for analyzing the concept and idea of interest, an idea that is fundamental to the entire conflict resolution field. Its concentration is based on the interest-based processes that you can find in the Steirer model. Remembering that interest for purposes of the first two models are defined as a party's wants, needs, fear, hopes, and concerns or concerns. The triangle suggests that there are three broad types of these interests. First one, this model process that we can map all interests into these three different types, and these three types are qualitatively different from each other. When working to resolve, each type of interest requires different intervention and different approaches. They are coming from only one problem, one side, only about the interest, but they are different in processing and interventions, processes or procedurals, result or substantive, and emotion or psychological. I love this model. It is very simple, a little more complicated than the Steirer model, but very, very practical. You can use it in many aspects of your life. Many interventions, good intervention I have seen from this model. Because of that, I say that if you have time and enough interest, read the book, The Mediation Process, about the mediation process. This is, the first part is result interest or substantive interest. This is what the outcome, the most tangible part of a conflict. In litigation, it is who pays how much money to whom. On a work team, it is the final decision on a continuous issue. In a landlord or tenant issue, it is whether the tenant keeps the apartment, what the new rental amount is, and etc. It is about the result. In California, Miramar University, we are working on designing a course about the job matching assessment, gathering some basic and the most useful tests for job matching parts. One of them is DISC DISC. DISC is one of the greatest, very simple tests for gathering information about the future of job matching. In this, we say about the results. For example, dominant people, dominant leader are result based. They have no intimacy, they have no nothing about the process. For example, in the other parts, people with a good cooperative and good coordinating people are about the dominancy and about the process. In a housing transaction, the main result interest of purchase may be getting a low final purchase price and including as many light fixtures, appliances, and curtains as possible. Whereas the main result interest of the seller may be getting a high sale price in as is condition. You see that in a stairway model, we have three processes. One, interest-based processes. Two, rights-based processes. Three, power-based processes. Now in the second model, triangle model, we are talking about only the first level, interest-based processes, that we can find three types of satisfaction processes: result, process, emotion. It is about the orientation, about the direction that you concentrate your interest on. Are your interests concentrated on the results of your actions of your organization? Are your interests concentrated on the process of your interest? Are your interests concentrated on the emotional or psychological aspect of your interest? We are talking about the interest. Because of that, we are talking about satisfaction. It's like your real life. For example, we have a good phrase about satisfaction, so-called marital satisfaction. What are the elements of marital satisfaction? The elements of marital satisfactions are the satisfactions about the interest. If you don't have any share goal, any share interest, any common interest with your partner, if your partner is the best man or a best woman, that's good. Why not? It's not a good partnership. It is not about the personality of your partner. It is about the nature of your relationship. Because of that, you see that two people, two good people, two nice people doesn't have any good relationship. Why? Because of the conflict of interest, because they have no satisfaction. So relationship is something different from people engaged with their relationship. Two single nice woman and nice man, two single nice woman and nice man can have a very catastrophic, very damaged relationship. Why? Because of conflict of interest. So honestly, if I want to another word for interest, share interest, if I want to use another word, I should use satisfaction. The final outcome of the shared interest, shared outcome, shared meaning is your satisfaction. You can use it in your organization also. Why? Because the major elements of your organization are your employees, and your employees are human beings. They are the same person out of your organization. For other social roles, like for example, as a friend, as a mother, as a father, as a sibling, as a citizen, as a worker, as a lover, as a spouse, and other roles that we have. Please go to internet and use and read some science-based topics about the role conflict. We have two parts in human beings. At first, role confusion, two, role conflicts. These are very important. How do you want to work with people as a manager, as a leader, if you don't have any deep analysis about their mind, their heart? You are working with their personality. It is not only about money. The time of this type of thinking about personnel, about employees has passed about 50 years ago, not about 10 years ago. After World War II, we understand, yes, it is organization. Yes, we know. We are talking about the income and outcome. We are talking about the cost and benefits. Yes. But our tools are not our robots, our personnel, our employee. Because of that, turnover is a very, very important topic in business coaching and executive coaching. Turnover can damage anything in your organization. And what is the main problem? What is the main cause of turnover? Because of the manager, a leader, mid-level manager or high-level manager doesn't know anything about empathy, about having good relationship, effective relationship, not the same level relationship. Yes, you are a manager. It is not necessary to have the relationship at the same level of your, for example, simple worker. Good relationship is a meaningful relationship. It's like parenting. If you are a parent, it doesn't mean that you should go, for example, to party with your son because we are so friend together. It is not parenting, it's friendship. You are parent, you are coach. In the distance of coaching, you should know how to empathy, how to understand, for example, your child. And after going to adulthood, your child go to adulthood. After that, you are not parent, you are friend. Why not? We can go to disco with together. Because of these major deep concepts, is that only some of the managers or some of the leaders are charismatic or have dominancy over the heart of their employees. And it is the basic part, a very, very important basic part. Every successful leader or manager will talk to you about it, that yes, our employees are the major and high cost elements of our organization because of training, because of time, because of knowledge, because of experience. All of these are the basic, we talk about time and money as the basic cost of all aspects of conflict resolution. So please pay attention so deeply and reading and studying and talking and reading their movies, reading their videos in YouTube about these 9 models. It can create an atmosphere of good relationship and effective relationship with anybody around you. When you are a good manager, that you are a good self-manager. And when you are a good self-manager, when you can manage yourself, your emotion as an emotion regulation, your thought, your action, after that, you are something more than a general manager, a public manager, a public leader. You are becoming and growing for yourself. Also, one of your things that you are doing for earning a good money is managing an organization. The second type is process or procedural interest. The first part based on the results. This part is based on the procedures. This is about how. The first one was about what. It is about how the process by which we reach a result. We are talking about the methodology. We are talking about the procedures. We are talking about the processes of gaining what we want, of meeting our interests. When the solution is implemented, how fair the process is, how inclusive the process is, how transparent the process is, and who is involved in the negotiation or decision-making process are all process or procedural interests. Building on our house purchase example, we talked about it, some process interests might be who present the offer, the agent or the buyer himself or herself. How fair the negotiation process has been. Has the buyer lowballed on their first offer, angering the seller, or has his seller threatened to pull it off the market if they don't like the offer? Is there a bidding war for the property, or is it only offered the right? How long the contingency for financing or inspecting are, and so on. So in this part of interest, we are talking about the process, about the how we can gain and meet our interest. The third part, the third type is emotion or psychological interest, which says This is what is going on emotionally or psychologically as we try to reach an agreement. For example, I have seen in many families that they have a bad or negative emotion about the good decision in their family. For example, about wedding. One of my children wants to marry, and he has a good proposal, and a good boy or a good girl, a good son has gone to our home and says, yes, I want, for example, your next son-in-law. Okay, but I see mother and father has good emotion, not about the ceremony, about the nature of losing their children. Why? Because basically they have fear of loss, which is not important for their child. It's their problem, not their children problem. Basically, they have the major components, the major elements of fear of loss. So bad emotions, bad psychological status for good decisions. Wanting to win, wanting to save face, wanting to be heard, issues of status or self-worth, the quality of the relationship, wanting an apology or wanting revenge, feeling satisfied. These are all psychological or emotional interests parties may have. These are not about what you want and how do you want. It is about your psychological reactions, psychological needs, psychological hopes, psychological fears, psychological desires, psychological concerns. It's about your feelings, about your affect, about your mood, about your emotion. Because of that, the third angle of satisfaction is emotion or psychological interest. What we can see, it requires the practitioner to develop a fairly deep understanding of what is motivating the parties by exploring and understanding their interests. I have a question. What is the difference between empathy and sympathy? What is empathy? How can you define empathy? For example, if someone dies, we say to their family that with our sympathy. Someone dies, we don't say to their family with our empathy, we say with our sympathy. But as a practitioner, as a manager, as a psychologist, we should have a good empathy to other people. What is the difference between empathy and sympathy? It's very important to know about the details of differences between these close, very close concepts. Phoebe, Payal, Lisa, what are the differences between empathy and sympathy?
So empathy is like you got someone else feeling. Like your example to a funeral, you feel sad, so you people feel sad, so you feel that sad with them. But then sympathy, in the other hand, is like you understand that the people suffering for that feeling.
Which is positive, which is negative? Sympathy or empathy? Which is more efficient, sympathy or empathy?
Efficient is sympathy.
As a manager, as a sister, as a sibling, as a mother, which is more efficient? You should have sympathy with your, for example, child, or empathy with your child?
Empathy,
Empathy. Why?
I
because
feel
it allows you to understand what the child, for example, is going through, understand their emotions, while sympathy, you just feel bad for them, but then you don't do anything about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Empathy.
right.
Empathy is about your thinking about other people. You understand their procedures of suffering. You don't suffer in empathy. If you are suffering, who is healer? Both of you are ill. Both of you are inefficient. In empathy, you understand the methodology of his or her suffering, but you don't suffer. In sympathy, you suffer too. So sympathy for dying, for death is good, sympathy. Because it is not necessary to do anything. But in creating change, at first, I should understand the concerns of Luisa with 3 hours time distance with us, that I know in Maryland it is near 10, and maybe Luisa is a little sleepy. I should know it, and it is my empathy that yes, if Luisa after, for example, 1 hour said, sorry, professor, I'm a little tired. I don't say, it is not important for me. You should be so fresh on my class and other things. It is my empathy. But if I say, oh, Luisa, I am tired again. Why everybody is tired here? Such a bad time for a class. It is near the end of the time. It is sympathy, yes, but it doesn't work. For change management, sympathy doesn't work. Empathy is, I'm so sorry that many people think that empathy is a heart-based process. Empathy is not a heart-based process. Yes, it is based on emotion, based on your feeling, but the process is based on your thinking, based on your rationality. You find the methods that other people are suffering. What is on your heart? It is your sympathy. Because of that, when you want to go to, for example, ceremony for dying a man or woman, it is with our sympathy. We are so sad about this event. It's very important to know about the empathetic methods with your colleagues, with your co-workers, with your employees, with your partners. It guarantees the health and the maintenance of your relationships. Why? Many relationships, you know, I know that they are in long term, but they are not healthy. Who has told the maintenance, the longevity of a relationship is an indicator for a good relationship? I know many couples that have very bad relationship for a long time, for 40 years, for example. Is it healthy? No, it is not healthy. Why they have maintained in such a bad? Because of cultures, because of economic problems, because of fear of loss, because of fear of starting again, and other not so important. But after 40 years, they said our time is off because they don't have any empathy about each other. Only sympathy. Wow, for themselves or for other people. Number two, as even a cursory read of the interest analysis shows, there are significant areas of common interest that can be developed as foundation for resolution. All human relationships are a mix of common interests and competing interests. We have two parts of interest. It is not heaven, it is a real world. At the best scenario where you want to work based on interest-based processes, you should consider two types of interests. Not only the common interest, but also the competitive interest. And triangle helps the practitioner's map to understand that dynamic effectively. And the final part, something we don't hear from this analysis, is the issue of priority of any of the parties' interest. What interest, what type of interest, or what is the ranking, sense of importance for any type of interest. It is called priority. Which ones are deal breaker and which are simply nice to haves, although we can certainly get a sense of what is important to each party. Throughout the triangle analysis, it is only through the negotiation and resolution process itself that we will discover each party's true priorities. Okay, what are strategic directions? Number one, focus on common interest. The practitioner needs to identify and work with the parties around their common interests. Remember, every relationship has a dynamic mix of both common and competing interests. The special nature of conflict, however, is that parties in a conflict will tend to ignore all common interests in order to focus on the competing ones. And further, will tend to focus on the hottest, most provocative competing interests they can find. Is it good? If you only start with the competing interest, no problem. But if you only focus on hottest competing interest, it doesn't work because you are going out of the interest-based processes to rights-based. You are going out of the consensual nature, collaborative nature. Collaborative nature doesn't mean that you are only focused on the common interest, but it means that yes, the major focus is based on common interest. Because of the common interest, you can start the processing of resolving your conflict. But in addition of that, yes, we can consider our differences, not only focus on similarities. We can consider our differences in our interests, which are called competing interests. And finally, practitioner can explore the appropriately competing interests to see if there is a common interest underlying these competing interests. Fantastic way. Focus on common interest, consider the competing interest, find and figure out the basic parts of your competing interest. What are the common interests underlying your competing interests? So changing the competing interests again to common interests. Work with three types of interest differently: result interest, process interest, and psychological interest. A critical part of the triangle model is that the idea that practitioners need to help the parties address all three types of interest to get a good outcome. In addition, each of these three types of interest requires a different approach, not the same approach, and different intervention skills as we talked about it before. Result interest can be solved or resolved. They are typically tangible issues that can be negotiated in a very direct, hands-on ways. This happen throughout a variety of approaches: brainstorming, collaborative problem solving, BATNA, best alternative to a negotiative agreement analysis, and competitive bargaining or compromise. Either way, however, result interests require a tangible, substantive solution acceptable to all parties. Second one, so we know that we are talking about results, we are talking about the tangible parts of our interest. In process interest, tend not to be solved so much as negotiated on an ongoing basis. As we work to find a full resolution, the process often has to be changed or reinvented. It is not a fixed process. You should have a good feedback on your processes, on your procedures, on your methodologies that you are using for resolving the conflicts. The practitioner must think outside the content of the problem and keep an eye on the structure of the process itself. Who can talk about we should have three presentation during the 8 weeks. Who can talk about the principles of out of the box thinking for the next week? Phoebe, Payal, or Luisa? One of you, I want one of you talk and present with PowerPoint also. It's a professional presentation about the principles of out of the box thinking. What is out of the box thinking? What people have the most out of the box thinking? For example, has Elon Musk has an out of the box thinking model? Luisa, can you be ready for the next week to have a good presentation?
I can do it.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. I know that your presentation will be so perfect. And after that, I will talk to Payal and Phoebe to talk about another items. Please talk with us about the principles of out of the box thinking and see if you can find any methodology, very step by step methodology to train people how to think out of the box, out of the radar, out of the present and current situation in other aspects of life, tend not to be solved so much as negotiated on an ongoing basis. And psychological interest, we talk about the reactions and emotion, affective or mood-based reactions of your mind, of your heart, of your body. Totally, it is called mental reaction or psychological reaction, may require the symbolic attendance of senior executive. It is symbolic, not real. The process must constantly be reevaluated to ensure that it is helping the parties move forward effectively. Psychological interests are never solved. They usually involve how parties feel, and feelings cannot be bargained away or compromised. Move the parties around the triangle to avoid impasse. The practitioner can use triangle to work through impasse. An impasse can be caused by party getting stuck on any one of these three types of interest. We can see it in figure 5.2. It is another strategy. And the final part is process solution to result impasse. Sometimes, when the result interests appear incompatible, the parties can agree on a process instead, one that determines the result. They might both accept a third party, a mediator, deciding the result for them. Through arbitration, commercial real estate disputes about lease rates are often resolved by having each party obtain a professional appraisal and then averaging the two results. In both cases, the parties agree up front to a process that is seen as fair and then accept solution result that the process delivers. It is not so complicated. It is simple, but not so easy. It's different. Many things in life are simple, not with a very complicated multidimensional aspects, but not easy. It's something different. Many facts of your life, many procedures, many methodologies you should know, especially in resolving the conflicts, are very straight. But in action, practically, you cannot use the method you have learned, for example, in such a class, in such a session, in practice. Because of that, highly recommended. Everything during these 8 weeks you are learning, bring it and take it to your real life for all aspects of your life. If you go, for example, to Walmart to buy something, it can be a very, 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 very small conflict for in the line. You are in the line, in the queue, and say somebody has gone to your line. Okay, as ordinary, you say, sorry, man, or sorry, woman, it's a queue. See, how can you use, for example, interest base or power base or rights based or procedural or psychological, use it in your daily life. Because of that, you can learn what you are learning so skillfully. We have three types of learning. At first is simple learning, second one is skillful learning, and third one is master learning. Master learning is something that if I ask anything about that matter, even when you are awakening from your deepest sleep, you say the answer and go to sleep again. It is master learning. And in skill training, master learning is mean you are using your skills in the situations that formally these skills are not defined for those situations. You are the master of your skills. After that, you can say, yes, I am getting master in my job as a manager, not as a co-worker, not as a mid-level manager, not as a basic leader. I am getting master and master and master in my job as a manager. And management and leadership is not my job, is not my education. It is becoming my personality. After that, I wish to talk with you, the opportunity to talk with you about the change management in the organizational developmental theories. In that topics, we will talk about the change management. We say that every change will not be a change in the time that you cannot distinguish that it is new topic or not. It goes under your skin of your mind, under the skin of your skills, under the skins of your personality. It becomes you. In that part, it is not change. It was change. It is now your new version. Okay, let's go to the last part. And result of procedure of psychological impasse is if parties are stuck because of a deep mistrust, especially because of the previous mistrust in your life or with your partner or with your organization, one party may unilaterally give the other party a small part of the result they are demanding as a confidence building measure. CBM, it is, you can confidence-based measure is CBM. You know the acronym. It is very important to use the acronym of the professional language in your job. CBM is the acronym for confidence building measure. This is a result solution to the psychological problem of low trust. Another confidence-based measure is agreeing to a solution based on the third party, where verifying that each party is adhering to the agreements. Every time you have good access to the third party, to a fair third party and professional third party, use it. It is very lower cost for you. It's good. Even in some approaches like interest-based approaches to resolving your conflict. Using the mediators, using the third party, even your family problems, your organizational problems, or even in the national problems. We see that, for example, we have Congress and other committees only as the third party, not the main party, between, for example, legislation and, for example, president. We have many third parties to have consultation and to see the problem, define and redefine their problems. Any question? Okay, let's go to your weekly quiz. And next week, in addition to the course, we will have a good presentation. I think had the experience of looking and watching the good presentation of Luisa. Luisa is very specific presentation. And we have a good presentation. We'll have a good presentation from Luisa about the topic we offer and other things. And if there was any problem, any question, in addition to your learning engagement, send me by email. And now you can start your weekly quiz for 15 minutes. Have a good night.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night.
Oh, Professor,
Yeah.
do we have to submit anything next week beside the learning engagement?
Yes, every week you have a learning engagement.
No, I mean for the final paper, because the other class require
Yeah.
the title or something.
Yeah. You should create a group. I will email you tonight. No, tomorrow I will email for all of you for your tree and create a group for your group teamwork and group final paper and case study also.
Okay,
It's a
gotcha.
final paper is not group work. Final
Okay.
paper is individual base. But a case study, yes, you should. Also, you are only 3 persons, 3 students, no problem. And
Okay.
only at first step, you should title justification, send me the justification of your title. And after that, preparing the case study for the, I think, week 7 and presenting by video, and finally your final paper and other parts. Also, justification is for final paper, not for case study. Case study is only 1 session.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.